Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and finally we have a taste of some OpTic Scrims here in Modern Warfare 2 up against the New York Subliners and also Atlanta FaZe last night. Scump and Shotzzy putting on a show at times, but Cellium ends the scrim as usual with a 1.3 KD. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one. Also, don't forget to tune into Breaking Point next later on today, the biggest challenger tournament so far here in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. What a lineup we've got as well. I'll be hosting it alongside Nubsy and Parasite, 2013 world champion, staple of the Call of Duty scene. And then we've got a great casting lineup as well. Miles and Chancellor with their Shift, Visions, Nasky and Infinity, bringing all the action. Biggest challenger tournament so far. Absolutely love to see it. That'll be live on the Breaking Point YouTube later on today, and also the Boston Breach Twitch, I believe. Lots of things to dive into today. Firstly, just wanted to mention this poll here from Brian Stats, because we saw OpTic in the discussions who's going to replace Scump at the end of the season if he doesn't win every single event this season, which is nonetheless unlikely. The majority of people who voted in this said Pred is the far more likely candidate. I think there's some questions about this right now, but if Pred has another season like he did in Vanguard, it seems almost undeniable that this move might well happen. Of course, Aches has said in the past, though, look, when Scump retires, it's time to split up the Tiny Terrors. So who knows what happens, and if the OpTic team doesn't do that well, it's not like it could just be a one-man change, right? There's other possibilities on the table also. Before we talk about the OpTic stuff, wanted to mention Los Angeles Guerrillas, because it must be said so far, they don't look like they're having such a good time. Interesting, because I guess they decided not to play in that flank tournament, right? They decided, you know what, let's skip it, let's get some practice in against some other teams. We saw that Gunness was dropping 36 in 14 on their forehead and beating them in a scrim last night, and now Johnny, who of course, you know, famous for the Paris Legion extravaganza last season, is taking them down here. He's 36 in 22, and he doesn't try and, you know, cancel out the scoreboard or whatever like Gunness was trying to do. We can see very clearly, top right hand side of the screen, exactly what the other team happens to be. Spart wasn't having the best time in this one either. So yeah, obviously it's just one scrim. It doesn't really mean that much at the end of the day. We don't know how good Los Angeles Guerrillas are looking, but you know, one of the teams that isn't streaming their practice, we don't get to know what their results are looking like right now. And yeah, we expect most teams will stop the stream practice over the coming days. We probably won't get much more information over the coming weeks in terms of how the teams are looking, but for LAG, this is all the type of stuff we get. So, you know, we just have to read into some questions there, because we don't know how good this squad's going to be, but there have been some concerns about it, and so far, from everything we've seen, it's not looking particularly special, to be honest. Even this, I'd love to see this on stream, FaZe versus Los Angeles Guerrillas. If that would go down, I'd like to see how that would end up. Of course, early doors, but still, FaZe and Thieves and these other teams, Rokkr, are looking pretty good. Other teams maybe not looking quite so good, and that's about aligned maybe with what we might expect going into the season. So scrims do generally have some relevance for when the game actually launches, but at this stage, about a week into the game, it probably doesn't mean that much, all things considered. Even just this from Clayster real quick, because he put up this gif here of an interesting spawn, let's say, here on the Fortress map. So here he comes, they kill everyone, he's got the streaks coming through, and just to the right hand side of him here, you can barely see it, but I believe this player in red just spawned here as he was coming up the stairs and shoots him in the back. So yeah, unlucky stuff. Now obviously people were saying in the replies, as Gunner says, you guys are quite literally blocking every spawn. They have to spawn there, you know, get your logic up, he says. So, you know, pretty ridiculous spawn, but it can happen. The spawns in this game are far from optimal, but look, it's to be expected at this point. Watching some of the gameplay last night, some of these maps honestly might not be the end of the world. Some of them are kind of disastrous. Like, we're gonna need something else added into this game pretty quickly if we want this game to be good for this season, and hopefully with whatever, you know, season 1, whatever they're gonna do relatively soon, something arrives, because it's gonna be a tough time this season, no doubt about it regardless. Even this from Clay I thought was pretty funny. Attach says, this guy Clay loves his unintended line decides, and look at this, Clay comes off the absolute top ropes right here, Attach takes him down, but Clay's still, you know, trying to play jetpack on as much as he possibly can, just absolutely flying off. We're gonna see a few moments like that from Clayster, I'm sure, coming up this season. Let's talk what the OpTic guys were up to last night. This of course was in that tournament where Scump and co were playing Dashy and co. Look at how much Dashy gets absolutely melted right there. Only a couple of bullets from the Vaznev takes him clean down. There's been lots of talk about GAs and which ARs and which SMGs are going to get used. The Vaznev is still kind of the go-to for now. I think I'd like to see the Lackman or the MP5 rides or the Fennec be used a little bit just to see how things go, because this gun is just ugly and it sounds ugly, and I don't know, I don't particularly like it, but whatever. If it's the meta, it's the meta, and the SMGs are still having a relatively good time. Scrims though finally online last night. Scump explained a little bit as to why it took so long, because you know, it's obviously been a few days. Like, I think the Thieves guys, or maybe even FaZe, they started scrimming like last Sunday, right? So it's been almost a week really that OpTic have, you could argue, missed out out on. Scump's been playing like pubs and stuff off stream for several days. I think they were going to get into practice, but for whatever reason, one of them couldn't make it. Finally, after the flank tournament, which they played on Friday, they get together, sit down and play really their first set of scrims. They had some experience, of course, before this series. They played the flank tourney. They've watched some other scrims, so they're not going in completely blind, but still, they weren't particularly clued up on some of the rotations we'll see in a second. And Shotzzy already finding some interesting stuff. I mean, look at this play here on aBeZy, which is a map that looks good. Does it play well? Not so convinced. But yeah, I'm not sure if you found this himself, or you look at this, you can jump on this thing, and then you can strafe jump like so far over to this window. It's actually absurd. But there are a few good spots on this map where jump spots actually do come into effect, which is kind of cool from Infinity Ward, because I wonder whether they'd add anything cool like this. But they have. I guess it's intentional that you can actually do this. I saw Scump doing some cool things as well. So yeah, movement kings like Shotzzy are certainly going to be having a good time on maps like this. Now, just to note, because New York and OpTic last night did not play the hotel map, so maybe they've got a tip off that hotel is not going to be allowed, because as it stands, we know that the museum map, because it was based on a real museum, they can't play it anymore, even though it might not have been viable anyway. The Crown Raceway map, F1 probably aren't happy with their kind of paddock for the Singapore Grand Prix being used for, you know, just a shooting game, right, without their permission, is what we understand. Like, I don't know how they're so incompetent that this is even a problem to not get permission or whatever, or at least if you're going to use like the inspiration from something like this, like make a map that doesn't resemble reality, which is what they've done with the hotel map. It's literally copy and paste. If you guys missed the video a few days ago of the Conservatorium Hotel in Amsterdam, they've copy and pasted everything pretty much, and they've changed the name and thought it would be fine. The hotel isn't happy about it, and they probably aren't so happy about having their hotel featured in the CDL matches. So maybe, and we wonder what they're going to do, whether legal action is going to be taken, whether Activision can come to an arrangement with this. But we saw what happened with Museum. That just got deleted from the game effectively. So, you know, it's a bit of a concern, and some pros have still been scrimming on it. I think it's one of the better maps actually to watch and to play. But, you know, New York probably realized, you know what, it might not be here. So they're literally playing 3 hardpoint maps right now, which is an absolute disaster. But, you know, classic Infinity Ward. Some people, though, are scrimming it to Rokkr, Vegas. They're still playing the hotel map. So it's kind of unclear what the situation is here. We'll see in a second in more detail. So yes, OpTic versus New York scrim recap, courtesy of CDL Scrim Intel. So New York didn't want to play the hotel maps. They played aBeZy twice, they played Mikado twice, they played Fortress once. So 3-2 OpTic in the end, 250-199. They you know, they split both the Mikados and the aBeZy, and then OpTic won the Fortress 250-231. So interesting stuff. Of course, this New York team to me is arguably the hardest to place this season in terms of power rankings. I think for me it's relatively clear in my head where most of the teams should be in terms of the rankings of how good the team should be, but New York is so uncertain because they've got a lot of talent there. They could either be really good or it could not work, and they could be pretty damn mediocre to terrible. And even teams like Vegas are looking good so far, so it's tough to put an order on them. But yeah, 3-2 in this one. Haven't seen too much from New York so far. Of course, we saw that Crim6 had a few words for Priester and Skies and the former New York guys that he effectively got dropped for after beating them in a tournament just last night. And these are the KDs actually that also Ronnie put together here. So on OpTic side, Dashy had a 1.1, iLLeY had a 1.1, Shotzzy 0.93, Scump a 1.0, and a pretty similar story on the other side. But Hydra has a 1.4. So yes, already it's kind of funny really how these early storylines and these scrim results really in terms of numbers are pretty damn similar to what we saw last season in the CDL. Hydra having a ridiculous KD, a 1.4 over this series to lose 3-2. Priester though a 0.8. So I know people are going to look at this and say, yeah, Priester, he's already going to get dropped in a few months based on this performance. Who knows, right? We saw Kenny last season was getting roasted, should get dropped, etc, etc. And then of course he went on to win champs. So we don't really know. I think Priester was a very solid and respectable pick for this team, but whether, you know, whether I would have gone for a gunless, that's a question that I would have definitely considered. And Priester certainly does have a lot to prove this season. So if these numbers continue into the actual season, this team is probably not going to last all that much longer. And in fairness, it's not like Priester's been completely getting smoked every single time he plays. There was this clip he put out from 8s as well. So tough to say. And yeah, scrims are scrims at the end of the day. I know that the pros don't like it when the community talks about practice, but I think Attach had an interesting clip on stream last night where he said, look, maybe, because the pros don't want to stream their practice, but Attach said it's good for the scene when the pros do. It creates more interest, creates more buzz. The pros also get money because they can stream practice, they get subs and all this type of stuff, so it's good from that side. But over time, they don't like to do it because either you get reactions from the community and people get roasted and stuff, which is understandable, but at the same time, if you're getting roasted too hard in your Twitch chat, you know, you can just put it on sub-only mode or whatever. Like, that is an option for these guys to do. And then the other side of things is that you don't want to give anything away to other teams, which I think is fair enough. But Attach said, what if we just mandate alleviate the teams stream their scrims, which is like, they probably wouldn't want to do that, but that does kind of alleviate some of the disadvantage maybe. But then again, like, okay, the team that's bottom of the league, no one's watching their practice, whereas everyone's watching FaZe or Thieves or OpTic or whoever's the best. So it's probably not something the pros will ever agree on, but attach, it was an interesting idea, I thought. It was like, look, if we force everyone to stream, then, you know, no one's at a disadvantage. So I don't know, I doubt they'll do it, but it's still one option. The other matches that were going on last night with OpTic were up against FaZe. Look at Shotzzy, man, absolutely piecing here over on the Embassy map. The way he makes the movement look as well is absolutely insane. Some nice shots and range here also. So I show a couple of clips here. This one from Shotzzy, also a few ones from Scump stream, and then just one moment on Mikado where I think there's 7 hardpoint rotations or something on Mikado. It's an absolute mess. Like, I don't know who thought it was a good idea, and some of these hardpoints are just so tiny. It's like, man, if that's the 3rd hardpoint map and we only have 3 because Hotel is unplayable, it's not looking good, guys. Like, I don't know if Infinity want to be able to fix this in time, even if they want to, or even if they're listening to any feedback on this type of stuff. So it's a bit of a mess, and you can see the OpTic guys really didn't know the rotations and had a tough time on Mikado as a result.
Oh, he ran out of time. He's like...
I got it. Here's my clip.
Really good front.
I got him. I'm dead. I got him all. How much?
Deep planter slash.
Dead. One more's gonna be stairs on me. He's gonna chow. Yeah, I'm dead. Stairs, Simp. Stairs.
1 HP cell, 1 HP.
Okay. Trash.
Still there?
He goes. Where does he go after this?
He's on the truck. He's on the truck. He's still there. One guy's on the truck. I got one in. I didn't. He goes 10. He goes outside. He's still there. He chowed, bro. He's still there. Holding.
Are we hitting this?
Yeah, we got. I saw one more.
Get back that deal. This is a really good traps.
I think he's left side time. Yeah, her on time, bro. One shot. One more back left. Sorry. Yeah. I'm going left. I'm going top office.
Where's New? Wait.
So the overall record was effectively a split series, so it was 2-2. I believe there was maybe one of these maps where they lagged out of or something. Maybe they played the hotel map. And I think they lagged out with a pretty similar scorecard. But yeah, 2-2 in the end. So Embassy, they split those. Fortress, 250-209 in OpTic's favor. Then the last 2 maps. The Mikado was interesting because they were down by a massive amount in this series. Had no idea what the rotations were. And then made a bit of a comeback towards the end, but still lost by about 100 points. So interesting stuff. I thought it was decent showing from OpTic overall, just because, as Ronnie points out, on the first day that Thieves plays, they lost like, I think it was 7-1 or something, including the controls maybe, up against FaZe on the first day of their practice. So, you know, decent showing for OpTic. Of course, they've had probably another couple of days to see and prepare for this FaZe scrim than Los Angeles Thieves had, when they literally didn't know anything and they were looking at hardpoint rotations on their other monitor. But still, decent performances. Some pretty interesting numbers again, just based on what we saw last season, right? With Scump and Shotzzy hovering about a 0.1, iLLeY a 0.9-ish, Dashy 1.1, Slasher in a similar boat. Simp and aBeZy not having the greatest time here, even though they did have their moments, and then Cellium with a 1.29, basically another 1.3. So will this be another year for Cell where he's dropping these numbers every single series he plays? I don't know, but look, there is some people already saying that, well, it's going to be Dashy versus Cellium again for this year's MVP. I think there's going to be some more candidates this year. Cellium is most certainly one of them, with the numbers he's already dropping here in Modern Warfare 2, but just scrims, and they tied the series at the end of the day. Quick note here on Proto, because Proto was spotted in this scrim. Not sure what's going on here with Proto, whether he's there as like an assisted coach guy for, I think, the FaZe guys, but or whether there's a possibility that he's just recording VODs, as Ben J. Nassim says here. That's more likely, and even he was spotted in this scrim the other day when they were playing Los Angeles Thieves. So maybe that's what's going on there with Proto, of course. Definitely a name you guys might remember from the Modern Warfare Seattle Surge days. Quick other scrims that were going on. Thieves, impressive performance here up against the Minnesota Rokkr. A 6-1 result here, winning 2 out of 3 of the controls, winning the majority of the hardpoint as well. Also, they played the Zarqwa map, right, the hydroelectric map, which might be viable with a few changes. I actually quite like the look of that one, so the pros are going to have to consider it because there's not much else going on at this point. So they played a lot of different maps actually yesterday, so hopefully they might add those into the scrim sets, and even aBeZy control was at least tried out here. So there's some alternatives here, maybe some of the first times these maps were being played by some of these teams, and then on this one they were playing the hotel in Rokkr versus FaZe, 5-3 for FaZe. So just some results to share for you guys, but interesting early days here, and we probably only get a couple of days of OpTic scrims before the streams officially will turn off. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.